When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
Well, howdy, folks, and welcome to the Wacky World Drive-In Podcast. And for those of you who might be new listeners, which I assume there are some because we haven't recorded one of these since the channel kind of picked up a little bit, this is my R. Sterling Gray podcast, along with the illustrious blogger extraordinaire Dick Vincent from the Oak Drive-In blog.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Yeah, it is good to be back. And I have to admit, though, the blogger extraordinaire title might be a bit too much because I haven't done a posting in a while, but I really want to get back to it. But I do appreciate the shout out.
Oh, well, speaking of been a while, it has been a long time since we've recorded one of these, and it is 100% my fault. I will openly admit, because as I mentioned, the channel has kind of picked up a little, and so I've just been trying to keep up that momentum, and I've been so busy with doing the own videos and trying to keep a right schedule. I've just slacked a little in the podcast, and I apologize for that, because we've had a couple of folks asking, hey, what's the deal here?
Well, it's a good thing that you're getting busy. That's nothing to be sorry for.
That's right. And so before we kind of get started with tonight's episode, which we'll be talking about movie theater memories, I wanted to mention that even though it's October and it's supposed to be kind of the spooky season, I have been on this massive spaghetti western / samurai movie kick. That seems to be all I really want to watch lately, and I just keep kind of jumping back and forth between spaghetti westerns and just 60s westerns to samurai films.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, spaghetti westerns. That's talk about a giant rabbit hole you can go down.
Have we ever discussed that on the pod?
I think we touched on them, but we never really went into them in any sort of depth at all.
Well, let's do a little bit because, like I said, I'm in such a kick. I've been wanting to talk to you about it.
Oh, okay.
I tell you, I had a first time watch not long ago. It was a recommendation from our mutual friend Jocelyn on Twitter, and it was 4 of the Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever seen that one?
Yes, yeah. That is actually one of my favorites. That's one of the more uber violent ones.
That is the Lucio Fulci Western, in case anyone didn't know.
Yeah, pretty cool. A Western, brought to you by a guy who did, Gates of Hell and City of the Living Dead and the Beyond.
And it is exactly what you would expect from a Lucio Fulci Western. It's very dreamlike is almost the best word to use because he likes a lot of fog machines and that kind of, and it just has that kind of almost like you're watching a dream while you're watching it.
Yeah, he does. That carries over a lot from his horror film, especially that Gothic trilogy he did, where it's all kind of it's almost like you just kind of are half awake and you're watching this thing that, unfolds before your eyes.
And with 4 of the Apocalypse, it's definitely not an action-heavy Western. It's definitely more mood, atmosphere, and that sort of thing. But it really sucked me in. And even though it's actually very dark and kind of tragic, I was very impressed with it.
Yeah. A lot of the spaghetti westerns, I think, kind of veer more toward the tragic, almost these kind of Shakespearean stories of the fall of people and, the way they end up in their circumstances and stuff. There very rarely is there a happy ending in a spaghetti western.
Yeah, I was telling Jocelyn that with 4 of the Apocalypse, the entire time I was watching it, I was reminded of another film. Yet the 2 films are not even kind of similar in plot or execution. But for some reason, my brain just kept going to Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Oh.
Have you seen that one?
I have seen it. It's been many years, and that does kind of get my interest going now.
Yeah,
I can kind of, now that thinking about it, they both have that kind of dreamlike quality to them. So I could definitely see that. That would probably make a heck of a double feature.
Yeah, that's probably it exactly. That dreamlike quality with an air of tragedy just underneath the surface and on top of the surface and then some in a lot of parts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that is a good one.
And they're both uncomfortable films, but not uncomfortable in, like, say, extreme horror, where you're just like, ugh, why am I watching this? It's just a different kind of discomfort, a more pleasurable discomfort, so to speak.
Yeah, it's almost maybe kind of a discomfort like you said, not of horror, but more of just kind of a discomfort from the atmosphere, or just you don't know what's really going on, maybe.
So as far, I wanted to ask you with the Dollars trilogy, which that's actually was how I started in spaghetti westerns, because I was really, really late to the party with westerns in general. Like I'd seen Young Guns as a kid and really liked those films. And then Tombstone, I was a big fan of in the 90s. But as far as the actual good 60s and early 70s spaghetti western type stuff, it wasn't until I read the Dark Tower series by Stephen King that kind of piqued my interest in the Dollars trilogy. And that's where I started with. And there's still some of my favorites to this day. You know, sometimes movies are overrated and sometimes they're popular for a reason. And I'd absolutely say those movies are popular for a reason. Which is your favorite of the three?
The second one, for a few dollars more.
That has been my go-to answer for years and years now. But I just rewatched all three a couple weeks ago, and I gotta say, Good, the Bad, the Ugly, it's moved up a little. Like it's close. It's neck and neck with for a few dollars more.
Yeah, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for years just was my favorite, maybe my one of my favorite spaghetti westerns of all time. But the last few times, like you said, I rewatch them, man, maybe once a year I'll watch all three of them. Then the last few years, for a few dollars more, is slowly edged up. I just love Lee Van Cleef in it, and you can't go wrong with Klaus Kinski.
Yeah, and Lee Van Cleef, he is so good as both a villain and a hero. But I do think I just kind of prefer him a little bit more as a hero, and that's why I kind of like for a few dollars more a tad better.
First caught those on television, actually. And it was really weird watching them because my dad was a huge Western guy, and he just took me to see every John Wayne movie out there. And when I first caught those on television, you would watch them and you'd look at them and think, this is really, I mean, it's like there's American actors maybe I recognize, but it's these really weird, it's like, they're filmed in Europe, but they're really strange looking, and there's this really weird music in the background. And it was really the first time you see them after growing up on American Westerns, they're pretty much a mind trip.
With the Dollars trilogy, weren't they? They're Italian made, but filmed in Spain.
Yeah, most of the Italian Westerns, they're called spaghetti Westerns. They were produced in Italy, but a lot of them, there's a region called Almadeira.
Mm-hmm.
That you can go. There's a bunch of sites online. People have done blogs where they shot location shots and everything. But you look at it, and you can. People put up pictures, and there's like the hills you can see, and it looks exactly like in the movies.
Right, right. I had mentioned that I've been going back and forth between the spaghetti westerns and samurai movies. And looking into it and watching them back to back, there are a lot of not only similarities, but influence that moved back and forth between the two.
Oh yeah, especially with Leone. I mean, he was a huge Kurosawa guy, and the movies, the first one in the trilogy, I know, was an exact homage, if not an outright ripoff of a Kurosawa movie.
Yes, so much so that the Kurosawa side of it sued. I don't think they won, or if they did, they settled. But yeah, so they felt so too.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what happened. That's the same thing with the Magnificent Seven. It's a direct rewrite of Seven Samurai.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. I keep meaning to.
Yeah, it's amazing how many of the samurai kind of themes and stuff they have worked their way into westerns.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of been my kick as of late.
Yeah. So, what samurai have you been watching?
Oh man, I'll tell you, and I keep wanting to cover it on the channel, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But something that absolutely blew my mind and is now one of my absolute favorite film series. I just loved every single one of them, And that was a strong recommendation from my buddy Al from Them's Fighting Words, and that is the Lone Wolf and Cub series.
Oh, I love that. I've got the Criterion box set, and I've had that thing on like Laserdisc and bootleg VHS and everything. And that's an amazing series of films.
I got the Criterion collection as well.
Yeah, yeah. Just, they're just, I mean, the story in it is great, and just the violence in it. It's almost like, cartoon-like.
I don't know if you know this, but in the packaging, there's a hidden compartment. Have you
Yeah,
found
in the
that?
spine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah, I've always wanted to read them. I know they've been translated in English as the series of graphic novels they were based on.
I put those on my list recently. Yeah, I was curious as well.
No, I think there's a bunch of them, but yeah, I've been curious about those.
Yeah, there was a really interesting story in the book that came with the set where the main actor, Tomisaburo Wakayama, he definitely did not match in appearance the age or the figure of the actual character from the manga. And so he just felt he needed to get the blessing of the creator in order to play the character. So he actually showed up at his house with a sword and like demonstrated his skills in the front yard. And sure enough, the creator was like, yeah, that's it. You got it.
Oh, wow, wow. Yeah, I think my favorite one is probably, I think it's the second one. Is that Baby Cart at River Styx? The one where with the three brothers who all have those weapons on their hands.
Yeah, that would be the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they go off looking for that treasure in the desert, and all those guys are hiding in the sand, and they pop out and everything. And
Yeah, when I first watched them, like I watched them one a night, all in a row. I forget my exact ranking now, but I had an exact ranking. But yeah, two, the one you mentioned, was very high. It was either in the number one spot or the number two spot.
yeah, yeah. I remember I first saw those. Roger Corman had actually, he took like, I want to say 10 minutes of the first one and a good hunk of the second one and grafted them together and released them as Shogun Assassin.
I was going to mention that next. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I first caught him, was at a like at a drive-in or something on the second feature.
That's one of those ones. I collect trailer comps. That's one of my favorite things to watch and collect. I have so many of them, and that's one that has appeared pretty sure on multiple trailer comps. Seen that trailer for years and years and years, but had never seen the film. But I knew the trailer so well, and that music, that really good iconic music from the trailer. So when I got the box set, it comes with Shogun Assassin as like a bonus feature. And I watched that last. And it was interesting watching Shogun Assassin after watching the 4 or 5 actual films first.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I think whoever at New World put that together did a pretty good job. I mean, considering what they butchered the original, as it's obvious, but I think it works really well what they did.
Yeah, and I'd say the one advantage it has, or the one superior thing they did, is the music. The music on that Shogun Assassin soundtrack is phenomenal.
Yeah, that'd be a great, I don't know if it's out, but that'd be a great soundtrack.
It is, but it is very hard to find.
Oh, okay.
Like I saw the vinyl on eBay, and the cheapest one was $200.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, but that's a phenomenal soundtrack. Like
Yeah,
I wish someone would take the actual Lone Wolf and Cub films and somehow slip that soundtrack in there.
ooh, that would be kind of cool.
Yes, indeed. So, what
Yeah.
would you say is your favorite Western then, just in general, across the board?
Oh, across the board, like any,
Yeah,
Italian, American, anything.
anything, yeah.
I probably got to go with either probably the Wild Bunch or My Darling Clementine from John Ford.
Oh, I haven't seen either of those.
Yeah, the Wild Bunch is definitely, man, everyone needs to watch the Wild Bunch.
Okay, well, what year is that?
69, Sam Peckinpah.
Okay, I will keep an eye out.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Who's the star of that one?
It's William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, Warren Oates, Ben Johnson. It's got a great cast.
Speaking of really good American ones, I rewatched Hang 'em High as well. I forgot how good that one is as well.
Yeah, there's that one, and there's Joe Kidd.
You mentioned that when I went through it on my list too.
Yeah, when he kind of came back to America and they kind of made those, you can tell there's a lot of influence from Italy that came into those movies.
Right, yeah, definitely.
But Hang 'em High is really good if we know the whole vengeance angle and everything. And I think that's one of Clint's best roles, actually.
I'd say I think my favorite Western, if I had to pick, would be High Plains Drifter.
That is a really good West. That is a movie that I remember the first time I saw it, I hated it.
Really? Okay.
But then I went back later. I think I saw it when I was too young, maybe, to fully appreciate it, because I think I saw it when I was like maybe 10 years old.
Oh, no wonder. Okay,
and I was like,
weird,
what
dark
is this?
movie.
What is this? But then later, going back to watch it, it's a really great. It's almost a horror movie.
Almost, and it's one that I recommend to people that don't necessarily like Westerns.
Yeah, it's because it's not really. I mean, it's a Western, but it's not. And nothing about that movie that's a traditional Western.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Same thing with one I've covered it a bit on the channel. Never Grow Old. It's a modern one, but I was very impressed with.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
Yeah, it's really hard to explain. There's almost no action at all in it. So it's not an action movie. It's more just so set in the Wild West. But John Cusack plays the villain. And wow, he is really good and really creepy in it.
Oh, wow.
I tell you, the tone and vibe of it, this may sound weird, reminds me of that film The Witch.
Oh, wow.
So imagine if The Witch was a Western and not horror. It would be Never Grow Old.
Wow. Now you've really got me interested.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good one.
Wow. Yeah. There's a really good one too. I believe it may be one of those Netflix movies, but there's one called Renegades.
Okay.
That has Christian Bale in it. It's basically a small group of cavalrymen being, forced to go across this desert wasteland while they're being, harassed by an Indian party. But it's really good.
Yeah, I really like the whole Weird West genre in general. That's a favorite of mine that I wish was actually used a little more, but they really just don't make a lot of Weird West stuff.
No, they don't. They don't.
And I just like the whole use of kind of hybrid Westerns, like you were just saying.
Yeah, that is a good point, but you can't really think of many, really.
Again, The Dark Tower, the Stephen King series, though really only the first book has the Westerny kind of vibe. From there, it just kind of goes on and does its own big epic-y thing. But that first book, The Gunslinger, that's a great kind of Weird West novel.
It is, yeah. I remember reading that for the first time, thinking, "Oh boy, man, this whole thing's going to be, the whole thing's going to be this big, long Western epic." But it kind of goes off into the different things, like you said. Yeah.
All right, so to the actual main topic, movie theater memories, and basically, I just mean memorable things that happened to us, maybe at theaters, going to see certain movies, midnight showings, that sort of thing. You want to start us off?
Yeah. This is a good one because I grew up, back when a lot of this great stuff in the 70s and 80s was at the theaters. And that's how you went and saw most of your stuff. And it was really cool because, this was, pre-internet and pre-anything. You would go see these movies and you kind of had no idea what you were seeing. Maybe it was some retitled Italian thing and you would go home and say, I was really cool. And then later in the 90s, when the fanzines and the internet came out, you could actually start researching them and everything. But yeah, it was a great time because when I grew up in Detroit, there was a lot of theaters, a lot of drive-in, and a lot of theaters. But downtown, we had this little area around Grand Circus Park that was like our little mini grindhouse area. There was an old theater that ran kung fu movies, the old theater that ran like, European sex and horror, and an old theater that ran the blaxploitation stuff. And you could just go downtown on a Friday or Saturday night and go see 2, 3 movies.
Yeah, as I've mentioned many times before, because I'm exceptionally redundant, even in saying how redundant I am. Growing up, we only had 3 theaters in my hometown. All 3 of them were mom and pop theaters. Didn't get a chain until the 90s. So all throughout my youth, the most rare and obscure movies were playing just casually in a small town, which was kind of unusual. So as I've said, I got to see a lot of interesting things on the big screen that most people didn't.
Yeah, that is a great way to grow up.
Like a memory I had, and I actually jotted down in my notes here. I remember, well, jumping back a little bit, back then, pre-internet, you just had the newspaper, and it would just often, even with the smaller budget type movies, the B movies, give the title only. You'd have no idea what it was. So my dad and I, we would actually go to the theater to look at the poster to get an idea of what some of these films were and to go see them.
Oh, that's cool.
And I remember one Sunday, I think it's Saturday or Sunday afternoon, we went, and the 2 movies playing at the theater, because I think it was a double screen theater. It was Hands of Steel, the Italian film, I'm pretty sure, and then the Kilimanjaro film, I forget the exact title, about the killer baboons.
Oh, Sansa Kalahari?
It's something Kilimanjaro, like the shadow of Kilimanjaro,
Oh,
or the
okay.
mountain of Kilimanjaro. Yeah, it's about killer baboons.
Oh, wow.
It was that and Hands of Steel, which is I think it's an Italian film and it has John Saxon in it.
Oh, wow.
So just to give you an idea how obscure the movies they showed at this theater was, it was those 2.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
And I can remember we started in Hands of Steel, and I don't remember why, but we left that one and went into the baboon movie, and I ended up really enjoying that one.
That's pretty interesting about Hands of Steel, because I don't think that had many theatrical showings. That was probably cool,
Mm-hmm.
I know it's out on Blu-ray now, because a lot of these things are, but yeah, that's probably pretty wild that was showing at the theater. I remember in the early 80s, probably, or even later, there was like some horror triple feature playing that we went to. And the last movie playing was from back in the 70s, and it was The Devil's Wedding Night.
Oh, okay. I've heard you talk about that one.
Yeah, and I can't go through a podcast, I don't think, without mentioning your name, but I remember watching that, and that point when Rosalba Neri comes out of that coffin all soaked in blood, I was like, oh my God. But I had no, she was credited as Sarah Bay in it, and that stuck in my mind forever, that scene. And I was at a Chiller Theater back in the probably 90s at some point, and something weird was there, and Mike Varney, bless his soul, he always used to give out free, whenever you bought stuff, he gave you free VHS, and he handed me that free VHS of The Seducers.
Ah, good one.
And I took that home and watched it. I said, that's her. And then, I went off on my little, researching, thing on the early internet and in fanzines. And that's what got me into a Rosalba Neri freak.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's very, very similar-ish to how I was exposed to Laura Jimser. I remember just catching part of a movie on Cinemax one night, seeing her, being enthralled, to even taping part of it, but not knowing what the movie was, and then seeing her years and years later as this Black Emmanuel character and realizing it's like, wait, that's it. That moment of realization.
That's great how you see something like that and it makes that wrinkle in your brain. And you never forget it. Then years later, when you see it, you're like, oh my God, that's her, or that's him, or that's the movie.
Yeah, it's easy back then, or it was easy back then to lose movies and just to forget. Like when I was very small, I mean, pre-starting school, probably too early, like kindergarten, first grade, I absolutely loved the Bronx Warriors movie. What is it, 2010 Bronx Warriors?
Yes.
I watched that movie so much, loved it. but then I forgot the title and didn't know what the movie was for decades. I searched and searched, and then eventually I was at a Best Buy of all places, and I saw the cover, the DVD cover. I was like, that's it, finally.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Then plus you would, I've always kind of really admired people that you hear about folks that back in the day, they cut out all those ads out of the newspaper.
I did that a little bit.
They seen, and even the ones, and they kept these huge scrapbooks. That's one of the things I just like, darn, I wish I'd thought of that.
Yeah, I used to do that a little bit as well. I remember I had the Nightbreed one. I'm pretty sure for a while, but I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah. And you can go online a lot now and, look at the old papers and clip them and print them off, but still it's not the same of, back in the day of clipping out the old newsprint.
I tell you what, I do have a big box of, and that's movie stubs.
Oh, see, that's something else I didn't save that I wish I would have saved.
Yeah, I saved those for years. Like I have a bunch of them too, even though the old like 80s ones are starting to fade. Like you can't even read some of them anymore, but I have a bunch.
Oh, wow. You should get those scanned in and save them.
Yeah, you're right. I probably should, but there's so many of them. I mean, it's a lot. We're talking hundreds.
That's really great. See, that's something that I really admire folks for, thinking back in the 80s that, oh, I should save this,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool stuff.
I also saved almost all the concert ticket stubs.
I've got a bunch of those. That's something, yeah, I think a lot of people save, and I did save those.
Just to veer off a little bit, because that's what we do around here. What's one of the coolest ticket stubs you think you have saved?
I've got one from the Rolling Stones in 1980 when like Iggy Pop opened up for them.
Okay.
I've saved that one. Then I've got one from I love heavy metal, and I've got one from Richie Blackmore with Rainbow and Ronnie James Dio.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've got that, and I've got a bunch of them. I've got a couple Iggy Pop ones from when I saw him back when I lived in Detroit and stuff. Yeah. So what are some of yours?
Wasp/Motorhead/Impotent Sea Snakes ticket stub.
Ooh, man, Motorhead and Wasp.
Yeah, never really a Motorhead person, but big Wasp person.
Yeah, and Impotent Sea Snakes. I've never heard of them, but that's a great name for a band.
They were kind of a fetish rock group from Atlanta. Like, I think their only claim to fame was they probably appeared on those HBO late night, like real sex type TV shows.
Oh, wow. So they were into like the leather and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, leather topless girls, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow. I could see them opening up for Wasp and Motorhead.
Yeah, and this was Wasp pre-Whacky cleaning up his image when it was the KFD tour, so 97, 98-ish, where they were probably the last really extreme tour they did.
Oh, wow. Where'd you see him at?
The Masquerade in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah, that's one thing I'm really glad I did save was those.
So jumping back then, with the movies like we've seen on the big screen, what's some really unique things you've actually seen first run, let's say, or maybe even second run, but I just mean not at a revival showing? Have you seen?
One thing that was really cool is me and my friends went to see a movie, and the movie was sold out. We went to see, but there was a sneak preview screening. And they said, look, you can go into the sneak preview screening if you want, but the deal is once you're in there, you can't leave. Mm-hmm. So we said, yeah, we'll go see what it is. What the heck? And we went in there, and the only seats left were in the first row. And it was in one of those giant theaters in downtown Detroit. I forget which one. And this was, back in my, teenage years. So we were, a little bit, pharmaceutical up. And we sat in that first row, and it was a sneak preview for Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
And it was different. They didn't have all the music scored in. and there was some scenes in there that they took out later, and it was just seeing that thing, it was like, oh my God.
Oh, so it was actually a different cut.
It was a different cut. I remember they had some scenes in it that they took out later, and later I saw them back again when they put out those, one of those countless re-edits they've done of that on home video. And a lot of the music wasn't in there. It was, some of it was temp tracked, and I think there was some different Doors songs in there at some point, but it was really cool to see that. And this was like probably a year before it even came out in the theater or more.
Okay, so was it a sneak preview or was it a test screening? Because it sounds like a test
It
screening.
may have been a test screening.
Wow, that's interesting.
I don't remember filling out a card.
Okay.
But I don't know, it was a long, long time ago. But yeah, that's one of my memories. I saw Apocalypse Now, as a whatever, a sneak preview or test screening or whatever.
I ended up seeing a test screening of Borat for some reason.
Oh man.
I don't even remember why or how I ended up seeing that.
Wow.
Well,
did you get to fill out a card for it or anything?
I don't recall doing that either.
Oh, okay.
Now that you mention it. But some unique stuff I'm proud to say I've seen on the big screen. The Dungeon Master. One of my all-time favorite movies. Saw that on a Saturday afternoon with my mom.
Cool.
Eliminators. I remember seeing that one Saturday night with my dad. That's another favorite, all-time favorite of mine. Saw a special screening of The Haunted World of El Superbeasto on the big screen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
I love that movie.
As do I. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know. Well, that's great. You got to see that on the big screen.
So what are some others you've seen on the big screen, non-revival?
I remember driving somewhere. This is kind of like a before I saw the movie, but I remember driving. It was somewhere at night, out in the middle of driving from one city to another, kind of out in the boonies, and I was all alone. Then all of a sudden, in front of me was the billboard for Aliens. For Alien, I should say, the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And all it had was that egg.
Right.
And it said, in space, no one can hear you scream. And I was like, wow. And then I just kind of stopped the car and stared at the billboard for a few minutes. And then as soon as that, I think I saw that opening night.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And that, I probably went back and I think saw it 3 times afterwards.
Okay. That's a good follow-up question. What are some movies you've seen multiple times, like 2 or more times at the theater?
Oh man. Well, Alien for one. I know I saw recently I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think probably 4 times.
I still need to see that. You speak so highly of it, yeah.
Yeah. I just don't want to build it up because I hate when people build up movies too much for me, then they're always going to be a disappointment.
I tell you, I saw Fright Night multiple times. I think I saw it twice first run and then once at the cheap theater.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one. And I think I did see, I want to say, I saw Terminator 2 or 3 times.
I probably did as well. That sounds right.
Yeah, and a lot of times it wasn't, I really want to see this movie, but you'd be out with friends and someone, I haven't seen Terminator 2 yet. I said, I'll go see that again.
Yeah, makes sense. Oh, Pulp Fiction, saw multiple times in the theater.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that probably 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
I tell you what, the Street Fighter 2 movie with Van Damme, I saw in the theater multiple times as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's one of those ones that people really like to rag on, but that movie was very successful at the time.
Yeah. I think a lot of his movies weren't they? The things made a ton of money.
Yeah, he was, for a minute, that Van Damme fever. There was definitely some Van Damme fever.
Yeah, because I remember those, going to see those at the theater, and they would play multiple weeks.
I would often save his for the cheap theater, the 99-cent movie.
Yeah.
And those were often a more fun audience. Because if you're watching a more serious movie where you need to focus, you want a good, quiet audience. But something kind of silly, a popcorn movie like, say, Lionheart, for example, is one I saw at the cheap theater with a loud, rambunctious audience. That made it more fun.
Sometimes they are. I saw what was the Sylvester Stallone, the arm wrestling movie?
Over the Top. That was a
Well,
favorite of mine as a kid.
I saw Over the Top at a 99-cent theater, and people were like just up in their, feet, pumping their fists and everything. I expected guys to start ripping their shirts off and start arm wrestling in the theater. It was just a great way to see it because everyone was just, yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I loved that one as a kid. I saw it on cable. I didn't see it in the theater, and talk about such a dramatic, strong movie about arm wrestling. But
Yeah,
I really liked it.
probably no one but Sylvester Stallone at that point in his career could walk into the studio and say, I got this script about arm wrestling. Well, Sylvester Stallone, we're going to green light it.
Well, a lot of people these days make fun of canon films, but I love canon films. I mean, they are one of the, not soundtrack, the movie school part to my childhood.
Yeah, there's a really good documentary out on them.
Talking about that, what is it, Electric Boogaloo?
Yes. And
I do enjoy that one, and it's got a lot of good information, but at the same time, it's very negative, and I don't appreciate like the negative slant it takes on everything.
oh, okay. I didn't really catch that vibe the first time I
Yeah,
watched it.
like everyone they're
Yeah.
interviewing is saying negative things about the company and the movies, and people are just constantly trashing canon films throughout the entire documentary. And yeah, like I said, good information, and I do enjoy it, but that just does irk me a bit.
It was pretty amazing though watching it. It makes you realize just how many movies they put out.
And great stuff too, like as I've shown on my top sword and sorcery movies episode, my favorite sword and sorcery movie, The Barbarians, was a canon film.
Yeah, yeah, and just all that. I mean, you watch that thing and you're just like, "Oh man, that was a canon film. That was a canon film."
And the interesting thing about Barbarians, you've seen that one, correct?
Yes, yeah.
I didn't realize until I was doing research for that episode that it was directed by a Cannibal Holocaust guy.
Oh, Rugger what?
Diodato, I think.
Diodato, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down on one episode is barbarian movies.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
And we could do an episode on trailers too.
The sword and sorcery boom of the early 80s, that was just a great time for me. I was young and really started watching a lot of movies, so I watched a ton, every sword and sorcery movie I could get a hold of, and I even saw several at the theater as well.
Oh wow, yeah, all that post Conan stuff, and I think you could even keep busy just watching the ones that Roger Corman and New World produced because they crank those things out.
And those are some of my favorites as well.
Yep, yep, yep. Yep.
Yeah, I like Conan. Do not get me wrong at all. I think it's a very good movie, but it's one that a lot of the so-called knockoffs I like even better.
There are a lot more the knockoffs. A lot of them, we talk about a lot. They're not great movies, but they're fun movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And then some of the Barbarians I would just consider great.
Yeah, yeah. I like the one with the sorceress.
Sort with the twins.
Yes, yeah.
That's a favorite of mine as well. Saw that at the theater.
Oh, really? Ooh, see, I'm really envious of that.
Yeah, I saw that one at the theater. I remember seeing Wizards of the Lost Kingdom at the theater. Saw Kroll at the theater, Beastmaster, Conan. Even though Conan, what year did that come out?
80 maybe.
Yeah, that would have had to have been a re-release because I would have been 2 at the. So yeah, I wouldn't have been seeing Conan at
maybe
the theater
before. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw Kroll and all Beastmaster and.
Back then that was common. Before VHS video, they would just bring movies back randomly.
Yes, they would. Yeah, yeah. Just throw them out there.
Like I've seen all of the Evil Dead movies at the theater, first one included, and that came out definitely before my time of watching movies at the theater.
Well, yeah, Evil Dead was in the theaters for a long. They just kept bringing that back and bringing that back and bringing that back and. And I remember too, something really weird I saw about a year or so ago was, you ever seen the second Beastmaster movie?
I rented that. I think that was
Oh,
a
really?
straight to video one, but
When
yeah.
he goes forward into time into Los Angeles and fights, what's his name, Wings Hauser?
Reese Hauser, yep.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it since it first came out on video, but oh man, let me tell you, I loved it at the time, and that was the movie that made me a lifelong Kari Werher fan.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The first one I think is really, a lot of people rag on that movie, but the first one I think is great.
Really, I'd never heard anyone rag on that one. That's some, good Coscarelli filmmaking right there.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, don't, you know, realize that he's the one that directed that. Yeah, the same guy that did Phantasm did Beastmaster, man. It's got to be
And,
great.
and when you watch it, you can tell because there is some creepy, weird stuff like those bat leech guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then, of course,
That's
the Berserkers, very Coscarelli as well, especially the scene where they're running through those tunnels chasing the ferrets.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, plus who could forget Tanya Roberts?
Exactly. Yeah. Sheena
Yeah.
herself.
That's one of my favorite kind of new Blu-ray purchases of the past maybe year or so. Is Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome brought out that big old Beastmaster box.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to say Sheena. It was Sheena, right? Queen of the Jungle, or was it Shanna? I get the two mixed up.
What, the Vinegar?
No, that Tanya Roberts was in the Jungle Girl movie. Was it Sheena?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you got that a big box of that. I was like, oh, that's cool.
No, yeah, they need to do a big box of that.
Saw that at the theater as well.
Yep, so did I. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she was really good. Kind of an underrated B movie sort of actress.
Yeah, she did some really good movies. She was in Tourist Trap. And then later, I thought she was really, really funny, and she was really great in comedy when she played the mother on the '70s show.
Yes, she was. Yeah, her and Bob, both
Yeah,
very funny. Yeah.
I think she's one of those actresses that really sadly, never got her due on how good she really was.
No, she really didn't. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Then I know she didn't do many of them, but she did do a couple conventions along the way. Then everyone that I've talked to, people that read online that have met her, just said she was the nicest person in the world.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's always nice to hear.
And that is a great segue to a bullet point, something I wanted to mention that I did not tell you behind the scenes. TV memories.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of similar to how we're talking to movie theaters, but with TV. For example, one of my favorites was when I was a kid. There was this big promotion on my local channel that they were going to be showing Robot Monster in 3D. And you had to go
Oh,
to 7-Eleven to get your 3D glasses to watch Robot Monster. And I remember being so excited, getting my 3D glasses and being there ready and waiting to watch Robot Monster for the first time in 3D.
yeah. Was that back in the '80s?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was like kind of that 3D revival, because there was, when I was living in Detroit at the time, there was some stations that would have a promotion, and you'd go buy glasses like at a 7-Eleven or like a party store or something. Then they would show. Um, I remember they did the Shaw Brothers one, Dynasty.
Wow. Kung Fu in 3D, huh?
Yeah, they did two of them. They did Dynasty and Revenge of the Shogun Women. And Dynasty, if there's a 3D prints out there that show up sometimes that play at revival houses, and that's some of the greatest 3D in the world, because every weapon and imaginable flies into your face.
Yeah, I'll tell you what is not the greatest 3D is 3D on an early 80s television run off of a network
Yeah, that never worked well. That was
with
more
those
hype than anything else.
with those paper glasses. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm glad you said that too, because finally, after I remember one of our earliest podcasts, it might even been the first episode, but one of our earliest episodes, and one of the few things I remember, you recommended Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. I finally saw that one this month.
Oh, what'd you think?
I loved it. Yeah, it was a recommendation from you and then from Al again from Them's Fighting Words. And yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, that movie, it's one of the ones that it's almost the Hammer people never talk about it. It's kind of like it's just been pushed aside, but it's one of it's a like you said, it's a great movie.
I do not understand why it doesn't get more love. I mean, it is the perfect mashup of Hammer horror with Shaw Brothers Kung Fu. And the Hammer side of it, it was directed by the person who directed my favorite Hammer film, The Vampire Lovers. And then the martial arts Shaw side of things was directed by Chang Che, which did Seven Deadly Venoms. I mean, so just two great directors, two great worlds mashed together. Very impressed.
Yeah, I thought it worked really, really well. And it's a shame that they couldn't kind of, pursue that angle and, maybe do some more. I know at one time too, they were talking about one of those many unfinished Hammer projects. They were going to film one in India
Oh,
with
interesting.
like Kali, with the six-arm thing,
Hmm.
like in the Harryhausen movie. They're going to get into all that. But yeah, it's Legend of Seven Golden Vampires, man. So it gets a thumbs up.
Oh, it gets three thumbs up.
Well,
Yeah,
good,
really,
good.
my only, not even a quibble, just the thing that would have taken it from an A movie to an A plus plus movie for me is I really do wish it would have had Christopher Lee. That would have just been the icing on the cake.
Yeah, yeah. I
I I,
guess,
I wish
yeah,
he had done it, and I wish there'd been a bit more of Dracula because most of the movie he's in that disguise. But I wish it
yes.
had been Christopher Lee and he'd been in it more. But besides that, still great stuff. Peter Cushing, phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, as usual. Yeah.
Another first time watch for me recently, and what I was extremely impressed with was Horror Express.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my October perennial. Watch that every Halloween season.
Yeah, this I get this channel. I'm not sure if it's a local channel because everyone I ask about it's never heard of it, but it's called Movies with an S and an apostrophe or exclamation point. Not the movie
Oh,
channel, but
yeah.
Movies. And they've been playing a lot of really cool stuff all month. And I saw that there. I saw the Omega Man for the first time there.
Oh, wow.
And I also DVR'd House of Dark Shadows finally. And I'm going to watch that on Halloween night.
Oh, cool, cool. So you liked Horror Express, though?
Yeah, great, great. I was actually thinking like, wow, if I ever do a best Hammer list, this is going right at the like near the top. And I realized, oh wait, it's not a Hammer film. Crap.
Yeah, it's like the best Hammer movie that Hammer never made, though.
Yeah, exactly. Because yeah, Christopher Lee, yeah, Peter Cushing. I mean, yeah, it's great stuff.
Plus, what's great, it's got Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, but they actually get to share a lot of screen time together.
Yeah, because it's often either or they just aren't together a lot. But yeah, that one, I mean, they're a team. They team up to take down this. I don't want to give it away what it is because it's kind of a kind of a surprise. But to team up to fight the caveman, very cool.
Yeah, there's all that great, banter in between them, and it's yeah, some great stuff in it. And I know too that I read that right before he did that movie, Peter Cushing's wife had died. And
Okay.
then he didn't want to do it, and Christopher Lee kind of talked him into coming over and doing it. And I think you can really kind of see the real bond between those two fellas in that movie too.
Yeah, even when they're at odds in the beginning of the movie, they
Yes.
slowly warm up to each other through towards it. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it really comes through, I think. Like you said, even though they're at odds in the first part, I mean, you can watch that movie and really see the friendship between those two guys.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good. It was a really good one.
Yep.
So speaking of Hammer, the Hammer versus Amicus debate. I like them, but I think they're both great stews with some great output each. But do you have an opinion on the Hammer versus Amicus?
Not really. I probably, if I had to choose one, I prefer Hammer's output, but Amicus made some really great little movies. They did all those anthology movies.
That's what I was going to say. I do think that even though I do kind of lean more toward Hammer, I do think I prefer the Amicus anthologies.
Yeah, some of those are really good. All those ones they based on EC comics and stuff, and they did a lot of really good ones. I love the one, The House That Dripped Blood.
It's probably my favorite of theirs. Yeah.
Yeah. They did a lot of good stuff. And
Who did Monster Club? Was that Amicus or was that just someone else entirely?
I think that was someone else entirely. I don't
That's
think
good.
that was Amicus.
That's a good one. I really like that little movie.
Yeah. That is a good one. Yeah.
That's another TV memory. I remember as a kid finding out that was going to be coming on. I think it was like at 11 o'clock at night or midnight and being so excited and even trying to nap during the day so I could stay up late enough to watch the Monster Club. Started watching it, super excited, got midway through the first segment, the one about the Shadmock, fell asleep and missed the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, that's something. I mean, talking about TV memories is especially for me, it's like, you'd get the TV guide each week and you'd like go through it with like a pencil or a pen and there's something I gotta watch. You'd have to write it on a piece of paper and you'd make like a little log. Then you'd have to go talk to your parents and maybe let you stay up late to try and catch, something on at like 11 or 11:30 at night, and you'd all be sitting there with your pajamas on, and yeah.
Tell you, I was a big Troll fan as a kid. Another one I saw at the theater. And I think that's a very underrated movie. I think it kind of gets overshadowed by the infamy of part two, just how good that first Troll is. But Troll 2, I remember when it finally, because that didn't play in theaters in my hometown. And when it finally was coming to cable, I was almost equally as excited to see it because I loved the first one so much. But it was premiering on, I think it was Cinemax on the first a school night, the first day of school, even.
Oh
But I
man, that
remember,
sucks.
but I remember my mom let me. I went to bed early, and then she woke me up when it was starting, and I watched it, and then went back to bed.
Oh wow.
So I've always had fond memories of Troll 2 as well, just off that little experience, which I like that one. The whole best worst movie thing I think is kind of I don't really buy into that whole mentality. If you're entertained by a movie, you're entertained by a movie. And I've always found that one entertaining.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years and years and years and years.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, good Italian kind of B movie.
Yep.
What are some others you can remember or TV type events? Because remember in the 70s and 80s with the TV stuff, the TV miniseries, and of course the made for TV movies, that was often kind of an exciting event. The channels would play the commercials all week for this movie that they were going to premiere and being that kind of excitement.
Yeah, I remember Salem's Lot.
Oh, the original.
Yeah, because I remember reading the book and just, the book I still think is great. And I remember seeing the ads for that and you're just like, oh my God, they're doing Salem's Lot, and it was over 2 nights.
And I'll tell you, or just any movie, but it's amazing to think that that was a TV movie because that is still got some of the creepiest, if not the creepiest, vampire scenes ever put on film. Because vampire movies usually are not scary to me, but there's some scenes in that Salem's Lot that are just downright creepy.
Yeah, it's when you go back and watch a lot of those movies from the 70s and early 80s, especially the horror stuff, it's kind of like you watch them now and you think, oh, whoa, this is a TV movie?
Mm. There was the scene, I think it's been a long while since I've seen it, but something, isn't there the scary kid or one of the vampires floats up in front of a window?
Yeah, that's when the kid is the first kid that goes missing, gets turned into a vampire. Then he comes back later to haunt, what's his name, Mark Petrie, and is like at the window with his fingernails.
I mean, that right there, that scene, that's as scary as anything today. And to think that that ran on normal TV, not even basic cable, we're talking one of the three network channels. It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember there was another one that I saw as a kid. It was called Nightmare in Badam County.
I don't know
And
that one.
basically, it's a 70s women in prison movie made for television.
Wow.
These, young college kids on vacation in the South get arrested and get sent to some, sweaty hellhole. And I remember watching that, and it was like, you know, just being amazed at what they were doing. Then later it came out on Blu-ray recently, and it came out with the TV cut, and there was a harder cut that they made for theaters, actually, that had some nudity and stuff. But even watching the TV cut again in the past year, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a TV movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different days. Well, I mean, even looking back on the It miniseries, like, I mean, just how good that one was and how creepy many of the scenes were.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said, for TV making it creepy without actually showing you the real blood and horror stuff that they couldn't show on TV, but still they did a really good job a lot of times of just making it creepy.
Yeah, it's like they had to try extra hard, and it
Exactly.
showed in many cases.
Yeah, like those the first Kolchak movie, The Night Stalker. I remember seeing that, at some point in my childhood, and I don't think I slept soundly for probably a week after that. That thing scared me to death.
Okay, well, let me tell you, speaking of Kolchak, as far as show openings, the two creepiest show openings of all time, in my opinion, are Tales from the Dark Side and the Kolchak TV series opening. I don't know, something about that very last, like, have you seen it in recent years?
Yeah, I saw it probably a few years ago. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know, when it stops and he turns and it freezes like something just got him or is about to get him. I don't know. That is just such an effective piece of television right there. I find that very creepy.
Yeah.
So, moving on to another topic, we actually had a listener request, and a listener by the name of Stark asked if we would discuss the holy trinity or the unholy trinity of Scream Queens, which be Linnea Quigley, Michelle Bauer, and Brinky Stevens. And I was talking with Mr. Vincent about that, and we weren't positive if we've discussed them before. Pretty sure we have, but not together. So we'll talk about them together. What is who's your favorite of the three? Let's start there.
Probably well, it's hard. I mean, Michelle Bauer is probably my favorite just because I've met her and she was extremely nice, but probably just my favorite as far as the actress and her roles is Linnea Quigley.
Yeah, I got to go Linnea as well.
I mean, she's just done so many great movies, and she's one of those people that whenever she shows up in a movie, she kind of makes it better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Every movie is just a little bit better if there's some Linnea action in it.
Then I always kind of pictured too of her as, when this, maybe just be probably my opinion on things, but I always thought of that point in Return of the Living Dead where she does the dance in the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the start of the whole Scream Queen phenomena.
And as an iconic scene too.
Yeah. And but yeah, she's just done so many movies I just enjoy, things like Night of the Demons.
Right.
I love that movie. That's like an October, Halloween perennial watch for me. And yeah, she's cool.
What is your favorite Linnea movie? See, with me, for years and years and years, I always said it was Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. But recently, really looking at it and really considering hard, I gotta say that Vice Academy is probably my favorite Linnea movie.
Yeah, she's good in that. Probably my favorite one is probably probably Night of the Demons.
Okay, that is a good one.
Yeah,
I remember when I first caught that on cable, and I think I thought it was going to be Demons, the Italian film. And then when it started, it has that cool kind of animated opening sequence. I was like, wait a second, this isn't Demons. And then I realized, oh, it's Night of the Demons.
Oh, yeah, they confuse you too, yeah. And plus there's another Night of the Demon too about it's the Bigfoot gore movie.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, it can get confusing with your demon movies.
Yeah, especially for a kid.
Yeah, and I like the one too that she's only in it for a little bit. She's one of the kills in it, but the Christmas movie with the killer Santa Claus.
Oh, right. I've never seen it, but I know I'm familiar.
Yeah, with the kid that goes berserk and dresses up like Santa Claus and starts offing everybody. But yeah, I think she's one of those people I think just like we said, always just makes a movie better.
And of course, there's Sorority Babes, a favorite of mine, and then
Oh, yeah.
and Nightmare Sisters, which I've talked about a bunch on the channel as well. That's kind of a hidden gem.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of those ones from back in the cable days I remember seeing.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, she was in. Yeah, she's done a bunch of cool movies, and she's still making movies to this day, I believe.
I'll tell you my favorite Michelle Bauer role. Well, that would probably be Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. I think she was Mercedes. But one of my other favorite Michelle Bauer roles was in Bikini Drive-In, the Fred Olen Ray bikini comedy. She kind of not really plays herself, but kind of a character like herself, but a parodied version of it. Really funny.
Yeah, yeah, and she was one of those people that just, I mean, never seemed to take herself too seriously.
Well, her and Linnea both real had a knack for comedy. They were
Yes,
both funny and they were great in comedies.
yes, yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. That, yeah, yeah.
So I guess kind of limiting Linnea as just a scream queen is kind of unfair to her because she is much more than that. I mean, she's just a gifted comedian too. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another cool thing, just going back to Michelle Bauer for a minute, I really like Evil Tunes too.
that is a good one. I
Yep.
forgot she was in that
Yeah, yeah.
because I know Monique Gabriel is in that one.
Yeah, I don't think she's in it for much, but
Okay.
she is in it. And yeah, that I think that is more of a Monique Gabrielle movie.
Yeah, well, she's, as I've mentioned before, one of probably my. It's tough between her and Linnea, but I really like some Monique Gabriel or Gabrielle, however you say it. Gabrielle.
Yeah, she kind of just dropped off the face of the earth.
Right. Yeah, last I saw, she'd actually kind of moved into let's say much more risque kind of video making.
Yeah, I guess she was kind of doing stuff to order or something like that. Or
Speaking of Monique, I rewatched one recently, one of my favorites. Loved it when it came out and revisited recently. It still really holds up. It's just a lot of fun. Is Transylvania Twist.
oh yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, it's a Roger Corman spoof movie, and it's Roger Corman produced, I think. I want to say it was directed by Jim Wynorski, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's just you'd think with Jim Wynorski and Roger Corman they'd be really sleazy. It's not really sleazy, but it's just a lot of fun with a great soundtrack.
Oh, one of the ones I really like by her is Silk 2.
Haven't seen that one.
A lot of people, it's got nothing to do with the first Silk movie, but it's just her as this, cop and policewoman in, Hawaii that, has a giant gun and blows away hundreds of guys.
Oh, what year was that?
Late 80s, I want to say 89.
That's the sweet spot too. Like 87 to 92 is really one of my sweet spots as far as just movies and music, everything in the between those years. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess going back to Scream Queens too, we should mention Brink Stevens, I guess.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, Nightmare Sisters. That is a great one because to getting to see the three, the Trinity, not only together, but actually all acting and interacting together. Because usually, even if they were in the same movie, they weren't in the same scenes. They didn't share a lot of screen time, but it was the three of them together in Nightmare Sisters, which was very cool. And it's such a funny movie, and seeing the three get to play such extreme nerds is great in and of itself.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I'd never thought of that before, but yeah, that is true that they do get a lot of screen time. They're just not kind of stuck in as guests. And
Because if you think about Sorority Babes, all three of them are in that, but I don't think they share screen time at all, do they?
I don't think so. No.
Because Brinky's just in that first initiation scene, and then Michelle is just kind of in that she's one of the imps minions, and then Linnea is like kind of the female lead, but they don't really interact at all.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. And I think wasn't Brink was in Transylvania Twist too, wasn't she?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, but yeah, that's that was quite a time back then. The whole Scream Queen thing and everything.
Any shout outs you want to do before we go?
Yeah, I would like to give a shout out to Jocelyn over on Twitter. She's the Pope of COSDS. She's always been a supporter of the show. She puts up great content. She's just kind of one of those really positive things on Twitter.
Okay, and I would actually like to mention Rob X. Romaine, who's someone I became friends with because we were both working on Monster Magazine at the same time. And he's a writer, a cartoonist, and an animator, and has a YouTube channel that has like some animated shorts and stuff, really cool stuff, and a great artist with a really unique style. And his Twitter name is at Doc Monster Labs, or you can just check out docmonster.com. Doc is like doctor, so docmonster.com.
Oh, okay.
And with that, that is all the time we have for this week. Why don't you take us out, Mr. Vincent?
Yeah, goodbye, everybody. Hopefully our next Sabbath sabbatical won't be so long, but thanks again for listening, and remember to stay up late and watch cool movies on television. It's the best way to watch them.